I'm gonna go ahead and call us to order, I think. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Started? So at this point, we have three. Sorry, as I chew. Three directors present, myself, Eva Spertowitz, and Russell Hatch, and hopefully the others will be joining us shortly. And I think we decided to skip the land acknowledgement for the meetings.
Yep.
So I will move on to the adoption of the agenda. So I will take a motion to adopt the agenda as presented unless anybody has something they want to call out. Okay, Dan's here.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Okay.
All right, we got three. So with that, we will move on to board policy updates. And I will turn it over to Joseph for a very exciting presentation.
Oh, so exciting. So, as you all know, we use work sessions to introduce policies that we'll then do first read at our next regular meeting and second read at the following. And so this is just a chance to introduce things that are coming. We can discuss now, we can gather feedback between now and the next meeting, either in one-on-ones, email, kind of however we want to do that. So I'm just going to introduce these different policies and we can discuss, or we can move on, however you all want to do it. So this first one is around the emergency procedures, first aid, and safety threats. This is following House Bill 3584 that was passed in 2023. And this is all about electronic communication to notify parents, guardians, and employees within 24 hours of a safety threat action that was not a drill. And so this is a series of 4 different actions. And so EBC/EBCA, the recommendation is to delete that current policy, which is titled Emergency Procedures and Disaster Plans. And then that one would be replaced with 3 different ones, or 2 and then a modification. So replaced with EBC, which is Emergency Plan and First Aid. That is a highly recommended new policy. Also, a required new policy would be EBCA, titled Safety Threats. And then a highly recommended modification would be EBCB. And so we can just go through each of those. So first, you will see the recommendation to delete all of EBC/EBCA. And I'm just going to present all, and then we can just go through and discuss all of them in one section. Next would be the highly recommended policy, Emergency Plan and First Aid, which is titled EBC. And it's very...
can we ask questions now or?
Oh, yeah, sure. However you want to do it.
Okay. I'm curious in this one, the first aid requirements, I guess I assumed we always meet them, but I don't know, do we meet the first aid requirements in this policy?
We're currently reviewing that to make sure, but I believe we do, especially because it's for every 60 students enrolled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask HR to just confirm that with the breakdown.
Okay, great.
Yep. I can pause for any more. I can introduce the next one too, and we can go back and forth. So then, the next one would be another new recommended, actually required policy, and this is EBCA, titled Safety Threats. And then the third one is the revised EBCB, which is titled Emergency Procedure Drills and Instruction. And this one you'll see strikeouts and additions that's in the blue hyperlinks. So how would you like to work through these?
I have questions, just, but I don't know if anybody wants to work through in a different way. I just kind of have some general questions about these, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Can you, I always need a review on the difference between a lock down and a lock out.
I love that you started with that, and that is why I invited Rebecca and Steve. Rebecca and Steve.
Well, thanks to the language change, hopefully we've simplified it for everyone because it is incredibly confusing. So when we adopted the standard response protocol, one of the recommendations from the I Love You Guys Foundation was to have a lockdown as the ultimate direct threat danger, and a secure would be a notification that there's danger in the general area or vicinity. So that's the simplified answer.
Okay, so that means there's no lockout then.
No lockout.
Oh, go ahead, Steve, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, the lockout is replaced by secure.
Okay, and are we gonna have that in our policy?
So-
Or,
So in EBCB, wait, hang on. I want to make sure it's the right one.
You guys, that's my mistake. I was supposed to change that language and I just failed to substitute that word. While I was asking the question, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I think I forgot to change that language.
Yeah, I'm looking at EBC. Oh gosh, what is the emergency plan? G1, the emergency plan first aid, new policy version. The first sentence there says the district will maintain a comprehensive safety program for all employees and students. Program will include plans for responding. All of it's included in that. I think I don't know enough about these policies to know if we should go to that level of granularity in the policy. Maybe we should, but I know it's spoken to that we're going to have that plan, and it'll be at each site. It'll be, developed with input from the community and agencies, et cetera, et cetera.
Actually, my recommendation would be in EBCA, that first sentence,
Yeah.
simply make the words match our process.
I agree, because that's what I'm looking at, and that's,
So I see. Okay, you're looking at. I see the EBC. Sorry.
yeah, the very first, yeah,
Yep.
it'd be helpful to have that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Joseph. My volume isn't working quite right.
Policy EBCA,
Right.
first sentence that defines safety threat action. We just need to
Right.
replace the current terms to match our current process.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, got it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think
And
I-
Yeah. And you can work with Rebecca if you need to on that, Jackie. She's
Yeah,
got.
yeah, I will. That's no problem.
And we'll
And so,
all of these, Jackie.
yeah, I've seen, okay, so Rebecca, just if you can review for me then, so a lockdown means kids are in the classroom, the doors are locked, no one's allowed in. Is that a lockdown?
That is a lockdown. A lockdown is a direct threat on campus. Lockdown, doors are locked, lights are off, everyone is out of sight, and
Oh,
not
okay.
everyone has been called.
Okay, great. So the
Yep.
kids are in the corner or wherever the protected place is.
Yep.
Okay, and then secure is what?
In a typical, or if there is such thing as a typical situation, secure, the way that we have been trained is that there's been notification of some type of criminal activity in the general area. It could also be a particular school has been put on a lockdown, and any other schools in that area as well would be put into a secure. So secure, get inside, lock outside doors, staff increases their situational awareness. If a site administrator is able to, they may say, staff, please check your email for additional information and instructions.
So it sounds like the only difference is that nobody's hiding per se. Is that probably an accurate differentiation or?
It is, it's kind of what we say is class as usual. So class is still going on in a secure or in a hold, which is a little bit different, which is when Joseph was holding up the badge, but in a secure, students and staff are still performing as they regularly would, business as usual in the classrooms. But we typically would ask teachers to not have students go outside of the classroom or outside of a physical of a building. So we wouldn't have a recess. If gym was happening outside or PE, we would have everyone inside the building.
Okay. And then how is this described to our littlest ones, like our K through third grade?
That's a
What-
great That's a great question. So we have been working with staff and providing some social stories, which I would be happy to forward over to you. We've been using some of the documentation from the I Love You Guys Foundation, and then we found some other age-appropriate ways, social stories to introduce why are we doing a drill. And we introduced the drills as common practice like a fire drill. So in fire situations, we're practicing to listen to our adults in the room, to follow our teachers' instructions. And we try to make it as age appropriate as we can for the younger students. I'd be happy to share with you all what the document is that we've shared with K1, 2, and 3 teachers. And we've received, and I can also provide some feedback to you all regarding the drills that we've done so far and what we've received for teacher feedback. Yeah,
Thank you. I would really appreciate that.
definitely.
I have a thought on that. Since it has been, something we're talking about a lot these days, would the board appreciate an invite to our next handful of drills so you could be on site with us and kind of witness it firsthand and see how it happens and how we operate?
I would love to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, keep me posted on those, and I can put that out in your weekend report for dates.
Because I think it'd be good to see it in action. I think that's the best way to experience what the kids are experiencing, what our teachers are experiencing, what our administrators are going through.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. Does that answer your questions on that piece, Eva?
Yep, those are my questions from that particular policy, yes.
Okay. Other questions in this section?
Joseph, I know, oh, sorry. I will stop in case I'm just dominating here.
I just want to say thank you, Rebecca and Steve and District, and the I Love You Guys stuff is really awesome. From the dives that I've done, that's kind of my favorite response protocol and seems lovely.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I appreciate that that's what we're using.
So I'm just curious, out of interest, when you're saying that 1 in 60 of our staff members has to be certified in CPR and the other first aid modalities. Is that something we typically offer certain individuals? Do we do that once a year? How do we determine who that
I can
is?
speak to that a little bit if you would like, Joseph.
Please.
So normally we stay above that ratio. It's usually tracked. I know that Serena tracked it once upon a time through student services. I'm not sure where it sits right now. It may still be in student services, but we track that. As staff changes and turns over, we often have to look at that and then we'll pick particular sites to say, hey, you've dropped below the ratio. Let's see if we can get a few people above that line. And when we have those needs, we actually will develop a session. We'll either call somebody in, or we've been able to use our school nurse in the past. Belinda's done it before. We reached out to some other certified individuals in the area to conduct a workshop on after school or on a Saturday. We do have coaches that go through a CPR first aid inclusive training. All of our coaches. We also have all of our bus drivers are legally required to go through it, and they update once a year. So those individuals are all certified. And then I used to stay certified. I was certified up until about 3 years ago. I probably need to get back in there and get that done just to make sure that we add to that ratio. But it's something that's monitored typically on an annual basis just to see where we're at in terms of numbers. But there are certain pieces of our organization that are required to have that legally and or just due to the nature of what they do. So we have a good chunk of certified individuals already. What we try to do with the rest is to distribute those amongst all the sites so that we have a good representation at each site.
So there's no requirements that say an administrator has to be certified or certain personnel. It just is sort of a random assortment of people.
The bus drivers are the ones that are legally required to, that I'm aware of. And like I said, we ask our coaches to go through a first aid certification. It's CPR, it's first aid CPR inclusive, I think is what it's called, because it goes a little bit beyond just the CPR. It's a little bit of those, just some stuff you can do with the typical injuries in an academic environment, or not an academic, I'm sorry, an athletic environment.
Okay, thank you.
But to my knowledge, Joseph, I don't think our administrators are required to be CPR certified.
Right.
I know a handful of us are, and tend to try to stay certified if we can. I know Stacy stays certified with transportation. And I'm not sure about Robbie and Christy from an operations perspective.
All right, thank you.
Well, what I was just thinking about, like, it just got me thinking this policy, not necessarily it's in it, but I know in the past when we've had a lockdown, parents and kids are often in communication on their cell phones. Certainly, I know that my kid, texted me at SOU across from the high school. So this is going to be different, right? We are now that, how kids still have their cell phones on their bodies, correct? Ish.
Not at the high school.
No.
Don't have it on their bodies. Where are their cell phones?
Most of the classroom at the high school have
Pouches.
they have a pocket. Thank you. I'm at a loss for words. And so when they walk into the classroom, they each place their phone in the pockets.
Okay. I would imagine still there's going to be the temptation to grab the phone, in that situation. So it's just, I'm kind of curious. By the way, I'm not advocating that the kids have the phone. I'm just thinking that is going to be a tempting time to grab that phone. And I know that's probably the one time parents want to have contact with their kids. So it's just something that I was just
it's a valid point. We've definitely had conversations with the high school administration and with the high school teachers, and we have kind of landed on we see it as an opportunity to provide students with that silenced phone, having direct communication with their parents. So there is a group of teachers that feel like if they can have the students in that lockdown situation or in the drill with a phone in hand, that it gives the student something to focus on. And so they've kind of practiced with the directive, say first 5 students, go ahead and text your parents. We're in a drill. I'm okay. I'll be back in communication with you in 5 minutes. And so then the next group of students are waiting for the instruction. And all of that is, very muted with the focus again with phones on silence and having that opportunity to be able to communicate with families. That's the recommendation. What we've heard at some of the trainings is we don't, in an emergency situation, you want to get students to not phone their parents because we don't want to tie up the telephone lines. And so texting uses, this is where I'll draw on Steve's expertise, but a different form of communication. So it's easier to get a message out and you're not tying up the lines or data. So that's what we've practiced with the older students.
So my understanding from the information I've heard is that generally it's better to limit that kind of communication just so that you don't end up with 100 parents rushing to school and actually interfering with any sort of safety response from our actual first responders.
Yeah, that is best practice. But as we've continued to meet with regional school districts and we've continued to participate in national offerings, it's a common challenge. It's really hard to stop that from happening in the event of, and all of us as parents can relate to that. You can imagine what students are going through. So what they've done is I think they've issued this notion that yes, the best practice is emergency responders would rather they just don't. And some said if you could just give us 5 to 8 minutes, with radio silence to give us a chance to get people mobilized and on their way. But even that's dang near impossible. So what they've done is, in a sense of a drill for us, is giving them an option to actually communicate with their parents in small batches. But I think to your point, the recommendation by emergency responders is that they'd rather limit that at all costs. And the parents are going to come regardless because we're going to be sending messaging out as a district. They're going to be getting messaging from their students in some cases. And so their tendency is going to want to get in their car and drive to the school. That's just, I think, human behavior. And that's been one of the biggest challenges for law enforcement in those situations, is trying to keep parents at a safe distance so that they can deal with the situation.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rebecca. And I think you and I have talked offline about that. My preference would always be radio silence. Just as I informed the board in our fall retreat, I will only be communicating in the event of an emergency. I'd only communicate with Rebecca, and I will be radio silent until such time that I can communicate, just because I'll be on the phone with everybody in those situations as well. So I think it's really important.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, if that's okay. I know at least a while back, what we were being trained at SOU was to escape or fight back, right? So I know that college, higher ed looks differently. Is that any of the message that the high school kids get?
Previously, our district did adopt the ALICE. The acronym ALICE is it basically it's similar to the organization Run, Hide, Fight. We have not had that training recently, but we have had, especially from the high school leadership class, we've had students express an interest in being able to learn more ways to defend themselves and to take care of themselves. So it's something that we're looking at, absolutely. And so that doesn't, it works actually really well with, it doesn't compete with, it works hand in hand with the I Love You Guys Foundation. So it's more, the standard response protocol is in fact that, how do you respond to specific situations, and then ALICE or Run, Hide, Fight would provide the next level of training in a lockdown or in a direct threat situation. How do you best protect yourself?
Okay, that's great to hear that there's possible options in that direction.
Mm-hmm. There's interest, there has been interest from older students, and then there has been a level of staff interest as well.
Any other questions in our EB policies? And again, if you don't ask questions now, we've got lots of time for questions. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on to the next section, which is section 2. And actually, we've already covered all this. This was brought forward, I want to say November-ish. Actually, I think it's in the notes. It's not in my notes, but we brought this forward. I want to say November. That's just going to be my guess. I'm going to stick with it. And I also have some of the notes that we discussed at that meeting. And so I just want to bring this forward to let you know I'm still in process of developing the ARs. That was a big question that we had. But winter break and, you know, budget stuff has taken up some time. So between now and our February meeting, I'll have a draft of ARs also to present for our first read. And I'm going to reflect all of the notes. I'm just going to cover some of the notes that we discussed in November. Really a lot of questions around the appeals process. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this policy to the board, because it was really kind of murky around appeals processes, as well as designating the expulsion hearings officer. We really wanted to clarify how that worked. At that meeting, we talked about the reasons for expulsion, which is really spelled out in the first section of JGE. The reasons, as well as some of the exceptions around policies around the lower grades, as well as just a unified approach one of the real reasons around having this really spelled out, as well as ARs, is that it's unified district-wide, that the same process is used at every school across the district, so that the hearings officer follows the exact same process, which would be me in this example. And so really just want to clean it up, streamline it. And so just going to finish the work that we started back in November, if that date is actually correct. So still open to questions if you have any lingering from that discussion, but I'll do the work from what we already talked about.
Yeah, I have a question actually.
Sure.
Looking at the first page of JGE at the bottom, underlined, the board delegates the authority to decide on expulsion to the superintendent. So is that new? Because I don't remember that from the past. Am I misremembering?
Jackie, I'm going to look to you. This is not new from what we presented last time, is it?
Oh, you're on mute, Jackie.
I'm on the note taking. I had to come back.
No worries.
No, it's not an update, but there's a choice option. There's a choice that can be made here. This board has in the past chosen to delegate this primarily, except for appeals, to the superintendent. But this is basically a decision. But this language is pulled from the new version, the new revised version, recommended here.
So I guess for me, what I'm thinking about is the board can, I mean, that first line, the board delegates the authority. For me, it would be the board can delegate the authority to decide on expulsion, because that in fact is the case. This makes it a blanket statement.
Well, in the policy, Evan, you kind of want it to be stated who's doing it first and who's doing it second.
Okay, so this means this means that the superintendent does it first, and then it can be appealed
To the board.
Okay.
That was the original issue, is when I had to step into an expulsion hearing, it wasn't clear if it was delegated or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant implicitly, it was also not clear if there was an appeals process. Because if the board was the hearings officer,
that makes it makes the appeals process weird then. So I can see that. Okay, that makes sense.
So the previous language, or the current language, said the board may delegate the authority to decide on expulsion to the superintendent or superintendent's designee, who may also act as the hearings officer. The district may contract with an individual who's not employed. The hearings officer designated by the board, so it was very vague. So we wanted to make it super clear procedurally, as well as the AR that I'll present will also essentially just be procedures.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions on expulsion?
I was just,
Go ahead, Eva.
so tell me about when the superintendent designates another person to handle it. Tell me about that. Like,
It's never happened in my experience.
okay, that's why I'm curious why it's there.
I would say if there was a conflict of interest, let's pretend I had a student. I had a child enrolled. I would not be the hearings officer if that student was recommended.
Okay.
That's moot in this scenario.
Mhm.
But I would say that would be the case. Or let's pretend one of your kids was recommended. I would want to recuse myself.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Let's hope that doesn't.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, and regardless, I mean, I would hope that it is the superintendent who is handling this, and it sounds like based on what you're telling me, that is the practice.
Yeah. In the case that there was something that I determined was potentially a conflict of interest, in that scenario, I would have to also assume, like, let's pretend it's one of your kids. I would also have to assume that my cabinet members would also need to recuse themselves because of the relationship. In that weird scenario, I would likely hire an investigator to do it, a third party that doesn't have a relationship. So again, that costs. So we really hope that doesn't ever happen. So I've always served as the hearings officer when I've been a superintendent. So I've never had to direct that elsewhere.
It gives some leeway if you're, let's say, on leave or something, and you could designate Michelle in your absence or something like that if it came up.
Yep. That's right.
This so rarely happens in the Ashland School District. I mean, so, yeah. I mean, if this is happening, it's a very big deal.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we've had hearings this year, so that's why we just need to have it clearly spelled out.
I'm curious, so is that something that normally the board hears about?
No.
No. Okay, so we only hear about if it's appealed to us.
Correct. Yes.
That's sort of a privacy issue.
Student discipline.
Mhm.
Anything else on this one? Hear nothing, I'm jumping to 3. This one's the fun one, procurements. And I'll do my best, hoping there's not questions yet. So, this one is, OSBA is recommending deleting a lot. I'm not gonna read the whole list. Well, might as well. DJC, DJCAR, DJCAAR, DJCA. I think I hit them all. And so some changes to DJC, and DJC, which is bidding requirements reflected, bidding requirements, that one went into effect January 1st. So that's a requirement under House Bill 1047. So some things are already having to we're having to comply. These are required. And it's really just talking about thresholds. And so hopefully you've all had a chance to look through this. There's a couple areas that we have to decide. For example, I will draw your attention to DJC, second page, number 6. It's highlighted in yellow. And just as a reminder, anytime there's brackets, it's us that has to make a decision. And so for this one, for example, at the very bottom, it says that the local contract review board approval, well, special procurement requires LCRB approval and will be conducted in accordance with ORS 27. That's a lot of ORSs, you can see it. And so now we have to decide if it's going to be and this policy, or and this policy and the AR, or, so to see all the different options, my recommendation would be that this is inclusive of the policy and the ARs. And so for that example, we would scratch the first bracket and, so it would be comma, this no comma. It would be this policy and administrative regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Did you follow? So we'd strike the first bracket, we'd keep the second bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through to see if there was any other recommendations I had off the top. Current DJC, the recommendation is to delete the entire policy because it's being replaced by the new one. DJCA, the recommendation is to delete the entire policy because it is also being replaced by the new one. DJCAR is the new one, replacing the old DJCAR. I feel really bad for those watching online. Sorry, folks. It's all available online. And that is all. So hopefully you've all read and you're ready with your softball pitch questions. It's actually pretty easy once you read through it all. It's just the thresholds of dollar amounts. And the AR really talks a lot about exceptions. Look at that. No one's unmuted. No oh. Eva.
I'm making you earn your salary, dude. Come on.
I think I've done that, dude. Respectfully, dude. Of course.
So wait, the AR is where is the AR?
Oh, I'm looking
I'm
at my
not seeing it.
binder.
I'm not seeing it in the list.
Yeah, it's there. It's after the
Where
deletes.
DJC.
After the deletes.
Hang on.
DJCR, not AR.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the OSBA designation. I usually put AR in the title.
That'd be helpful because then I know that we're not dealing with that.
Can you see it? It is attached.
Oh, no, I see it. I just didn't know it was an AR because it
Okay.
doesn't have AR in it. Yeah. now I can see on the actual.
So if you see the
document.
actual document, it says AR at the top.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, that was an easy question. Great. Good job, Eva. Hearing no questions. I really like you all. Okay, number 4. Medications. This one, oh, let me back up. As it mentions in our summary, a whole host of changes. So they didn't redline or track any changes because basically everything's being corrected. However, this one's a really great policy. My recommendations for all of the brackets throughout both JHCD and JHCDAR, I'm recommending we keep. Because what's that's talking about the short-acting opioid antagonist is how they refer to it. Which I think is wonderful, and we have. So that's my recommendation on that. It's just a lot of super detailed, especially in the AR, about process, which we already employ.
So I am very appreciative of this policy because in the past, we said that students could not take ibuprofen if they had cramps, and made me absolutely crazy. So I'd tell my kid to bring ibuprofen to school, and yes, she could take it, but she'd have to be surreptitious about it. So yay that we're acknowledging that kids can self-administer medication. I think that that's a very good thing.
I'm with you, and I'm with you, and I used to also be like, man, just take this with you to school. Don't tell anybody. And I felt super bad about it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't admit that. So I have 152 questions for you, Joseph, about this one. I wrote them down.
Well, I really appreciate you coming tonight. I just lost power, so we got to go.
No, I'm kidding. One thing I do want to bring up about naltrexone or other stuff, I think it's great. I'm glad that we work with folks to have that available. One thing I'd be curious about being on top of is a narrative online that higher dose naltrexone is harmful, in that, like, when you do more than what you need, because it's immediate withdrawal from whatever, it's immediate withdrawal symptoms that you go into, and that is really hard for people that are using. And so that we think about not necessarily buying into the drug company thing of the more the better on naltrexone.
Yeah, and we can look in more detail with the AR just so that we're really clear on following the guidance and training as well.
So I think our partner for that is Max's Mission, right? For availability of that on campus.
I don't know that answer.
And they're a good organization.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we are allied with good organizations on best practices for that.
For sure. And I can find out who we use or who we work with. Other questions on this one or comments? All right, well, that concludes our policy section of our meeting. But again, please feel free to discuss these with me in our one-on-ones. Shoot me emails with feedback or questions, and we'll continue to get this ready for our first read in the February board meeting, February 13th.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Joseph. I think
You're
you're
welcome.
again next with your review plan and process for evaluation of Superintendent Patrick.
Okay, so we discussed this also during the board retreat. Oh, and Stephen, Rebecca's gone. So Steve, you're welcome to head out and enjoy your evening if you'd like, but thanks for your help. I'll take the mute and unmute as a good. So this is something we discussed at our retreat also, and I just wanted to use this opportunity as just a quick review. I'm going to share my screen just for 2 quick documents. The first one is, and I have to be careful what I share because this is also my review tool. So there's parts that we share during executive session that I need to keep private. However, I think I'm good. Here we go. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can see at the top, it should say 5-part evaluation tool. Brilliant. Okay, so this is the organizational structure of the year of what I've done with the board so far. So that first section is taken directly out of the OSBA COSA Superintendent Evaluation Handbook. And so Part 1, Superintendent Performance Standards, that's the ISLIC standards, which is presented in that handbook. So those are the professional standards for administrators and superintendents. We developed the superintendent goals right off the bat this school year. Evidence of performance, we talked about action steps and some different performance measures throughout the school year. One thing that we've done is, well, feedback on performance and then evaluation summary. I want to jump to the actual steps. So this is something that we developed at the beginning. So this process was approved September 12th. I have met with the board chair more than 2 times a month. And then I meet with all board members about 1 time a month. I would guess we're maybe even above that. So now we're at we're at current kind of. So the plan is at the February board meeting, we'll have another executive session. And at this one, actually, let me skip ahead. We've done check-in meetings to review performance, and just for the public to be aware. So we review, I present my kind of self-review quarterly on the goals that were approved by the board. We've done good with the exception of we missed one. And so we've done reviews in executive session periodically, where the final one is February 13th. So at the next board meeting, I will present my self-evaluation to the board, and I'll be using the exact same evaluation tool that the board will be evaluating me on. So during that executive session, I will present my own self-evaluation to the board. The goal is after that board meeting, the following day, the board members will receive, and this will be up to our chair, but it'll either be an electronic version or a paper version for the board members to then evaluate me using the exact same tool. The board will have multiple measures of evidence to support your evaluation. So you'll have all of my check-in reports to the board. You'll have all of my weekend reports. You'll also have my self-evaluation. Those should help, should aid you in the evaluation. Now, we can cover this later, but so if it's electronic, obviously, then the chair will compile the results and work with the board to present results. And then the March executive session would really be the board finishing the evaluation, presenting the superintendent with the evaluation in executive session, provide feedback. And then either in March or April, the board develops this brief statement that is shared with the public that doesn't share the evaluation, obviously, but shares that the evaluation has been completed. This is something you've all done, so you all are experts at this, so it's nothing that I need to teach you, but I'm happy to support in any way. Also, OSBA is there to support boards in this work if there's anything, but I'm happy to answer any questions, also open to feedback or challenges to the process or anything you'd like. But being our first year together, thought it would be good to at least chat about it.
So I would recommend we do the electronic version unless people have thoughts otherwise.
And the electronic, my previous board has done it. It's nothing fancy. So I want to make something very clear. I'm happy to either me or our staff to do the work of developing the electronic survey. And all it is putting the exact worksheet in a survey format that will be built into Excel. But what will happen is whoever does it, whoever develops it, would send it to Rebecca. We will not see it. So once it's sent off, I will not have access. Nobody will have access except Rebecca to then compile the results. So I want to make that super clear. I will relinquish myself of any access. I don't want access until the final is presented. So I want that to be very clear. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. Well, then I will start working on my self-evaluation and once after the February 13th board meeting, then I'm also, of course, available for questions or follow-up as you're completing the evaluation. Okay, easy peasy.
Okay. So we will get it after February 13th.
Correct. And then you'll have the whole month leading up to the March board meeting.
All right.
And whatever timelines you establish, if you want more time to compile the results, which you may.
Depends how complicated they are, I guess.
Yeah, you never know.
Okay, so if that is all we have on that one, then we can move on to the micro-credential discussion. And so Dan, that was regarding the mental health credential you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, and this can be pretty quick. I just wanted to start putting on people's radar that one of the things I've been cooking up for a while, and it sounds like, Joseph, you're already hip to this. So I'd love to hear your ideas. My dream is that we were able to offer this to every teacher and staff that wanted to take micro-credential and behavioral health, just so we could, from the inside, refer out to pathways in a way that makes classroom management smoother and better for kids. The bigger problem is having the intake pathways outside of the school district and the partners. That's not an easy problem to solve, but what I imagine, so the big picture is that we ask teachers to do a lot more than just teach. And one of those things is be behavioral health specialists. We don't equip them to do that, generally speaking. I'm not talking about our district, I'm talking about broadly speaking. I would love to be able to offer that tool and be able to pay teachers more that have that. On the whole, I think that saves our district money in behavioral health from paying outside folks or paying very expensive folks to do that low level thing of just outside of billable services, the below that and the multi-tiered systems of support, just equipping our teachers to be able to do the thing that we're already asking them to do. So I just wanted to put that out there, that's a thing I would be interested in pursuing as a district, and just put that on the public record. But I wanted to hear from Joseph. So I know SOU offers that, and I know there's already funding for it through Ashland Community Health Foundation and some donors that care about behavioral health for high school students specifically. But I wanted to hear from Dr. Hattrick about what's your experience with this? How has that worked? What are the practices? Is that feasible here? Do we want to bite that off in a few years?
Yeah. There's a few things. So certainly we want to explore it, and there's two. So I was first introduced to micro-credentials in a whole different context, which was interesting. And the context that I was introduced to it as was also offered through SOU, but it was more of people offering classes to the community. And so that's one thing that I want to explore as well, that is a much easier lift. So essentially, imagine we let the community know that, maybe three evenings in an entire school year, we select the dates and we say, hey, our district staff are going to be providing professional development for community members to come in and take these courses. Our staff develop the syllabus, get it approved by SOU to provide this course. Our staff get a stipend of I don't know what the payment is. But once SOU approves the syllabus, we can provide it, and those community members that take the courses actually, when they finish it, it might just be an evening. I don't know the specifics yet, obviously. They get a half credit of SOU, and it's a great opportunity for community members to experience getting that college credit, a foot in the door, but also the sense of accomplishment and obviously skill building. So when I first had this conversation with one of the deans at the university, it was really cool because I thought, oh my gosh, how cool would it be to develop like a Love and Logic for Parents course that parents can come and just do some skill building and walk away with some university credit. Total win-win. But then I did later on hear about this micro-credential program, and I think it's great. I think what we do want to be mindful of is, yes, it's great to equip our staff with more skills. What I don't want to do is overburden. So we have to be mindful of that. One of the challenges that we've all discussed is unfunded mandates. This wouldn't be unfunded, which is great. But what I don't want to do is continue to do what we feel the state is doing, which is continue to just pile on. But it could be an answer to find some resources to continue to do skill building, just like we're doing with our Wayfinder curriculum. That is equipping our staff with more skills. And so it's certainly something that we want to explore. What I do want to be cautious with is we're in this exciting time where we're like in this reinvention phase. And I believe I shared with you all that I've just recently joined a work group called Expand the Talent Pool, which is also really seeking to expand our career technical education, apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships, internships for our students. And so what I want to make sure that we're not doing is overextending ourselves and sprinting at everything. And so I think as we're coming up with these ideas, we do need to somewhat scaffold and do some longer term planning. Because as we all know, we just committed to, out of necessity, a 3-year planning process. And I think we need to incorporate all of these ideas into that, because we know the first one was really out of financial need, but we need to start building all of these ideas into it, rather than be like, yeah, let's grab this, and then say this spring we're going to do it all.
So
Yeah.
just so you know, I'd want to frame it as an economic thing of how do we save money on behavioral health? It's all voluntary, and very cognizant that we are in a budget crisis, and we don't want to be like, hey, you know what? Let's pay our teachers more and also pay for their training. And also, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And my question for the board is more broadly, and for you, Dr. Hattrick, are we interested in instituting like round 2 of innovation committee for in the next couple of years? I guess we can ask the new board that too in a year. But is this the kind of thing that we want to kick to that? Is this the kind of thing that we want to roll in with the 3-year plan that you're talking about now, or do we want to wait till after 3 years to think about new innovation committees?
I think, oh, that was a question of the board, but I'll start. And then,
well, and you, yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be great to see where we're at in 3 months even. I'm super, super excited that it was about 24 hours ago, we put out this survey or this application for the Superintendent Parent Advisory Group. We already have over 50 applications. So I'm thrilled that the community really wants to engage as we're growing and evolving and improving, because that could take us to a whole new chapter that shows us a new path, and that could direct some of our work to see where we're headed. Yeah.
And Eva, can you tell me about the history of the Innovation Committee? Were those superintendent appointment committees, or were those board directed committees?
Those are board directed committees. Yeah. I was actually going to comment, Dan, I just started on the Ashland Community Health Foundation board, so I just got wind of some of the stuff you're talking about. So I can, I can see all sides of this. Certainly it looks like there's some money that's available, which is kind of cool. I'm trying to remember, I know that this stuff was confidential, so I can't really speak to specifics, but I'm wondering if some of what you're saying is based on availability of funding more immediately, as opposed to a 3-year
Yes,
plan.
there was a donor, and there was a news article about this, and we're not going to name individuals, but there's a news article about this, a donor to Ashland Community Health Foundation that had given $300,000 to impact behavioral health in Ashland High School primarily. And that's what got me thinking about it.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, do we have any sense of what staff interest is here? Because I mean, that's sort of going to be the key to whether it flies. I mean, I don't know how many you know, it is obviously something we can't require. I mean, looking at it, it does require pretty significant effort on their part. And yes, then, you know, if we can, you know, give them a salary compensation, that's great. But, you know, as you were saying, that we don't want to put ourselves in a tight spot right now either. I mean, are we looking at this as this will end up replacing something else so that, you know, we're cutting here and giving there, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
So really frankly, I'm thinking on the like 3-year time frame here, it came out of the community conversation. I mean, before that, the community conversations, the community listening sessions, where we heard a lot of folks say, basically, I can't do my job without a certain number of education assistants. And what I'm understanding from conversations with folks is that feeling comes from not being able to manage a classroom when there's disruptions, where you have no way to refer students out to a better resource to, because students just have days, right? Like they have those days, and it can't just bring the classroom to a halt. And we've been plugging that hole with EAs, which is a way to do it, but I'm wondering if this is a better way to help with classroom management other than a number of, we are have a large number of EAs. I guess I'll just say that, proportional to our students. And I wonder if this is a different approach.
So essentially the hope is that this is, you know, making a teacher feel more confident, giving them additional tools. So, and I, you know, obviously we hope that it's taken in that spirit and not, oh, we're just going to add more work so that you can do more work, you know?
I think for me, what matters is knowing more about this funding, and when it's offered and what the limitations are. Because if it is, I mean, I think if it is more tools to help address a problem in the classroom as opposed to additional duties, right? Then it's a real win. But if there's additional expectations on that teacher, that's where I think it becomes more of a challenge.
Right, because I mean, a lot of it is going to be in the perception. If we can sell it as this is helpful, as opposed to, you know, this is adding work, then it's going to
Well,
be.
you remember from the school resource officer conversation, there were community members that were like, don't, you know, cops are not teachers, cops are not social workers, cops are not
Yeah.
psychologists. And I totally agree. Same thing, teachers are not those things. Teachers are teachers. And so I yeah, I want to be super careful about that. And this is where I would defer to Dr. Hattrick, and your experience with this, especially with social work stuff. But like, how can we scaffold our staff to be able to better manage classrooms when we are really honestly going to be going up in classroom size? That's going to be the deal. And we know that that's not the most important factor for kids learning. But for our staff that have a narrative that we need EAs to be able to do our job, maybe it's a thing where training can help us do our job.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it would be really good to do some surveys around it. I think it will be important to also engage with both labor unions around it.
Yeah.
You have to understand my experience has been completely different. I've always worked in districts prior to this that had very minimal instructional assistants. And so I'm coming from a different paradigm. And so I really want to better understand from our staff what they're experiencing to how to fill that need.
Well,
yeah.
For me and your personal experience of being a teacher
Mhm.
that is also a social worker, like how has that experience helped you be a better teacher and administrator? And does that scale down to be like, hey, there's broader than that narrow lens of teacher,
Yeah,
here's additional skill sets that you can have if you want. We will support you in those, not
sure.
making you do them, but we'll support you in those. And here's the benefits of it to you as a teacher, and then
Yeah.
also the benefits as a district.
Yeah, I definitely had specialized training. When I was in the classroom, it was severe behavior disorder. So it was intensive behavior. So I had heightened training in that. and as a social worker, how to do that level of work. So yeah, it has a huge benefit. And so when I say engagement, I would want to get some feedback around how much Wayfinder is supporting that skill base. Like, I would want to compare it to some of the interventions we're doing to figure out how much that's helping with readiness versus some of the other things. But I think it's certainly worth continuing the conversation, especially, and this is probably more offline with just you and I, but around what those funding structures look like and kind of how to take it to the next level. So I'd like to continue that.
All right, any other comments or questions? Oh. All right, thank you, Dan. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think that's definitely something we will want to spend some time on in the future. All right, so our next item just says other items of interest. So does anybody have anything else they would like to bring up? Russell?
It's brief, but just to bring it to everybody's attention that all of the House and Senate bills are up on OLIS now. And they're worth looking through. Just because they're presented doesn't mean that they will make it through to a vote at all. But it's something I'm trying to track now and we'll start interacting with. But it's you can get an overview of it just by going onto it and slowly scanning down through the list. You just have your mouse over each bill and it gives you a summary of it. Some interesting stuff out there. Some of it that I hope goes nowhere. But yeah, it's worth looking into, and I'll keep you updated whatever I find.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or if you can, send us a link that goes directly to that so that we can be reminded.
Sure.
Look
Yeah.
at it. That would be great.
And sorry, that's Oregon or federal?
Oregon.
There's nothing going on federally.
Wow, nothing.
Oh, man.
Wild time to be in this position, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, Joseph, it would be, obviously as things become more clear, especially for our LGBTQ students, I'd really like to know what the ramifications are.
Yeah, in a couple of different realms, I've been working a lot on that. As you all know, my role at the state with the equity board, we're doing a lot to just, right now it's more questions than answers, unfortunately, because of the federal versus Oregon to figure out what's impacting us. So yeah, I'm happy to keep you updated. Right now, I've started into a period of, it looks like 2 to 3 meetings a week on legislative updates. My first one is tomorrow morning. And then next week I've got, I think 3, and they're with OSBA, Oregon School Board Association, Coalition of Oregon School Administrators, the legislator or area legislators, and then Chamber of Commerce hosts them with some of us. Yeah, I'm in a lot of those, so I'll be able to get different vantage points as well. So I'll work on that. I'll include them in my weekend reports to the board, but also I'll add them to my superintendent reports at board meetings to the extent I'm able. Me too.
Thank you. So I'm just curious, have you done anything like this superintendent advisory committee before? Is this the first time you've?
Yeah, my previous district, I did it for I think all 3 years. They're great.
I mean, was this, were you expecting this great of a response?
No, I have never had this big of a response ever. To the extent, well, you all know me by now that I tend to overcommit, and I think I might do that. Because this is such a large group, I might actually form 2 superintendent advisory committees, because as we all know, a large group is just going to be inefficient. But I'd really like, I really want to engage with as many families as possible. And by doing 2, I think it'd be really interesting to see what I would be doing is creating one agenda each meeting. But it'd be really interesting to see the outcomes of those meetings if I had 2, to see if the outcomes are the same with the same agenda based on the makeup of the groups. So I still think I might do that and have two, I think it'd be great.
Aren't you the little social scientist?
Oh, well.
Make sure you call them both your favorite group.
Well, I cannot disclose that publicly, sir,
No, you can't say you're my favorite group and you're my second favorite group. You can't tell them that. They each both have to be your favorite group.
or least favorite, but I won't do that. No, it's really exciting. And I said we'd keep the application open until next Wednesday, so now I'm a little afraid of how many we'll get. So my plan right now is to have the parent advisory. I'm going to be working with the leadership students to have a student advisory, and I'd really like to have a staff advisory too. So in the very, very short future, we'll have 4 happening.
Wow.
I don't know how to do all 4, but it's really important.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. I really, really appreciate your doing that.
It's going to be great. And the ultimate goal will be at some point. So these will also, I mean, the real thing is these are my boots on the ground. Sure, I'm going to be using them to help inform where we're headed for next year in the three-year plan. But that's only one task. This will be, as ideas come up, as we're doing our integrated planning, which is our district improvement plan, as we enter into strategic planning, in the very near future, we have to start development of our equity committee, which I don't know if that's even going to be allowed anymore. All of this stuff, and these groups are going to be integral to all of this. I think it'll be so great. And the 5th group that I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'd love a business advisory. The chamber kind of serves as that, but we'll see. You all know I love the feedback from our community, so I think it'd be great.
I feel like this is an opportunity. I hate AI with a passion, but this is one of those places where the AI listening and crunching down for themes could be super useful, especially if you're doing those meetings virtually. And I think we can all brainstorm on different language for equity. Like maybe we call it like the just and fair American values or whatever. But some other words for diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion.
I think that's clearly spelled out that we can't do it in hiding, but we'll figure it out.
But Joseph, I want to ask a question I've been wondering about. Most of our funding comes from the state, not the feds, right? So
I wouldn't say
are
most.
yeah, I mean, the titles are from the feds, right? But otherwise it's from the state. Is that right?
Yeah. Really.
So does that free us up? I mean, does that give us a little bit more leeway? Because we are, we're not dependent on the feds in the same way.
I don't know yet. All I know is I've been getting great advice from my assistant to say, don't freak out yet. Thanks, Jackie.
Nice.
So I'm just going to wait. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, given where we are in our budget, I mean, even 5% is pretty critical. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just too many question marks right now to really know that answer yet. I'm really focusing on protecting our district, protecting our students, and making sure that everybody knows they're cared about, they're loved, and they're safe. So that is our emphasis right now, and we'll figure out the rest. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I can't wait. If every piece fit just perfectly, I would designate one full day for my advisories where it'd be, one of my parents in the morning, then a student in the afternoon, and then late afternoon would be staff, and then another parent in the afternoon. It would be amazing, but we'll see.
Oh, I did want to bring up, I was at the mayor's, well, the mayor did a state of the city address today, and it was fantastic. And one of the things that she brought up that city council is doing, which we have brought up in school board, was a council corner on their website. And I just wanted to, as we enter the next few years of wild ride, having that really direct communication with folks would be awesome. So I would love to put a bug in your ear that sooner than later, having our school board corner on the website, kind of front page, whatever that looks like, blog. We can just rip off what the city does, but would be pretty cool.
Just so you know, it's on the list.
Can we so city is texting, I know that's for emergency stuff, but do we have school board, I mean, not school board, I don't want texting ability. Do we have school district texting to all parents
Do
opting
we have
in?
what?
School board I mean, not school board, school district texting for news, not emergency stuff. Do we have
Well,
like,
yeah, we have the push stuff.
yeah,
Um,
that's what I was
but
curious.
we have to be reasonable. Some people don't like the
Yeah.
regular for stuff.
I
I
would
just wanna
not
make sure
be,
we're gonna-
I would not be a fan of using that, frankly, unless it's emergency stuff.
Right,
I know people get grumpy about.
Well, no, then they silence us and they don't know when the
That's
emergency.
even
I just wanted
worse.
to make sure we
Yeah.
had it. I didn't know if we had
We
it.
do have it.
Okay.
We do.
All right.
That shows you I probably already silenced it because I didn't know that we had
Right,
it.
see?
Stop. STOP.
I do want to say I'm super grateful for ChatGPT as I've started exploring, like trying to parse bills in the House and Senate. Like reading
Oh.
60 odd pages when you can just plug it in and summarize it is
That's
pretty
cool.
great.
Ah,
Yeah.
I haven't tried that. Oh.
Awesome.
All right, well, unless anybody has anything further, I think we have reached a